Resin Seder plate, here we come. Today I'm going to show you the not so simple, kind of complicated, but so fun process of making a modular resin Seder plate. My blog post does offer tips for different ways you can assemble this and make it non-modular. Loads of ideas to help you avoid buying a $200 resin mold for Seder plates because that's what it costs. I know, I priced it out. Anyway, enjoy this tutorial. Obviously, I'm going to tell you to subscribe if you enjoy it, so just do it. Don't wait for me to tell you. Start by leveling your surface, and yes, this is important because when you're making larger projects and you don't level it, you end up with it kind of spilling out and uneven, so just do it. I'm working on a large wooden board that I used books to sort of prop underneath to make sure that the whole thing is level. Now we're putting on protective equipment, including nitrile gloves to protect our skin, as well as a respirator mask to protect ourselves from the fumes. Now measure out the two parts of your resin. I'm using Alumilite, I believe that's how it's pronounced. 2-part crystal clear epoxy, I think it's called. And just be aware that if you're squeezing it out like I did, you should really just be patient because you get a ton of air bubbles that way. So just go easy and don't like pinch and squish like me. Anyway, measure it out carefully. At this point, I added some white resin dye. However, I kind of ran out. So I'm going to show you soon what I did with the next layer, and you might just want to do that with your top layer. Mix it slowly, use a silicone stirrer. I don't recommend using wooden stirrers because that also adds air bubbles. So just use silicone stirrers and go slowly until you don't see any more streaks. Now we're pouring our resin slowly into a 14-inch side table mold. Now, just a note about this. I did not fill it fully. I filled it about, I think, half an inch. You really don't need it to be very thick, although you can definitely make it thicker than I did. Use your silicone stirrer to spread it to all the different corners of your mold. You want to make sure to get all those corners. Sometimes it's easy to sort of miss one, although when I use the heat gun to zap the air bubbles, which will be the next step, it does usually get in. I also had wanted to marbleize it a little bit, so to do that I just dropped a few drops of white resin dye into the base layer. Now, I've tried this effect before and it worked wonderfully. However, the problem here is that I ran out of white dye, so I did not quite get that effect. So it's fine, we ditched that. I'm just sharing that with you just in case you want to give that a try yourself. Now, you'll see that I did not mix up enough resin. One thing that you can do is sort of measure rice or something similar. You just fill your mold however much you'd like and put that in a measuring cup, and then you know how much. But because it's a Seder plate, even though we're curing it, I wasn't sure about using rice on it because we don't use rice on Passove. And also, I find that I have to clean it out well, the mold, and I was kind of running on crunch time. So we're going to do a second layer on this after we let it cure overnight. We're not curing it fully, we're just curing it overnight between layers. So we set the base of our Seder plate aside, and now we're going to take some 4-inch coaster molds, 6 of them. They're pretty shallow, and we're going to drop some alcohol ink in. Now, at this stage, I made a lot of mistakes, and I'm going to walk you through my mistakes so that you don't make them as well. So my first mistake was putting the dye in all of them at once. You're going to want to work with just one coaster at a time. My second mistake making this was that I overfilled my mold. You don't want to overfill the mold. You want it to be a very, very thin, I would say it was a shallow mold, and I filled it about 3/4, so I just slightly underfilled it. So the way you're going to make these coasters properly is you're going to work one at a time, place those few drops of alcohol ink inside, and immediately you're going to pour your clear resin just under filling your coaster mold. You can, if you'd like, gently help move around the alcohol ink a little bit, but it will move around quite a bit on its own. So you don't actually have to do that step, but I did because I like to feel like I'm in control of everything. Haha. Another mistake I made on the first batch was overdoing it with the heat gun when I was popping air bubbles. So you want to heat gun it to pop air bubbles, but you want to really just move it around, keep it moving. Don't leave it in one spot for too long. Now here's where you're really going to have to experiment because every resin is different, and this will also depend on your atmospheric condition, the humidity, and things like that. So what you're going to want to do is start checking after 4 hours and very, very carefully just make sure your resin isn't sticky anymore. For me, it took 7.5 hours. I don't remember exactly. I believe it was 7.5. You want it to be a soft cure where it's totally still flexible, but it's quite easy to get out of the mold. And when that happens, you are going to demold your coasters. You're going to take a small dessert/condiment size bowl And again, you're working with 6 coasters at a time, so you do need to have 6 of these available. You're going to very gently press it into the bowl so that it curves just as much as you want it. Do be very careful when doing this step because it still can take impressions from whatever it is that you're pressing in. So, for example, my gloves had a bit of a texture and it got a bit of that. So you definitely want to wear gloves. I do recommend smooth gloves for this stage. If you use just your hands, it's going to have your fingerprints on it. So I recommend using something smooth when you do that. I left this part of the video at real-time speed just so that you could see the real pace at which I worked on this. Leave that to cure fully based on the package instructions of your resin, usually about 2 to 3 days. And meanwhile, we're going to work on the next coat of our Seder plate base. So originally I had wanted a bright white base. So here, because I ran out of dye, I knew that I had to think differently. And then I remembered I could just use acrylic paint. So I poured some acrylic paint into a new batch of resin. And again, I mixed up too little. I keep repeating the same mistakes, but it's okay. It's fixable. So I just recorded the first batch of resin mixing up. I don't remember what happened with the second, but I did have to mix up more than this. So I mixed up bright white resin for the background layer. And then I poured it over the partially cured, again, really hard already, but not fully cured base layer of the resin. So mix it well, mix it slowly, mix it until you don't have any more streaks of the color, and then pour it carefully over the base layer of resin and pop those air bubbles and allow it to cure fully at this point before unmolding it. Now make sure your resin is fully cured before you remove the Seder plate from the base because it is such a large item, you really want it fully cured. And when I turn to the side, you can really see the difference between the translucent top and the more opaque bottom. So first things first, again, this is not in the order that I did it in, but I'm showing you the bowls that I messed up. I made these too thick. And I'm doing this to show you my mistakes so that you know that each detail is important here. It's not that hard to craft, but you do need to follow the directions. You could see that it crinkled at the top, but even more so, one of the most disappointing parts of this was that I had done it too sticky. So now let's compare with these that I did properly. So these are ones that I did thinner and I allowed it to cure fully and I did not take them out when they were too sticky. Now we're just going to pull apart on the ends of the bowl a little bit just to loosen it. And then we're going to sort of just tweak it a little bit here and there. You have to play with it a little bit, but they are fully cured and they will come out as you're going to see in. Oh, there you go. And every single one of them came out beautiful because I did it properly. So demold all your fully cured bowls. I did wait 2-3 days, I don't remember, for these to fully cure. With the base, what we're going to do is, because we want to sort of elevate it a little bit, we are going to add felt sliders. Those are just plain felt furniture sliders that are adhesive to the bottom. So we're putting one on each side. And then because the bowls kind of just glide around on the top, we're going to add those, silicone kind of grippies that you use to prevent furniture, cabinet doors from like knocking into things. We're going to put just 3 of those at the bottom of each bowl. Now, I do recommend that you check out my blog post at jewish.momsandcrafters.com. I'm going to drop the link in the comments, in the description of this video, because I have so many different ideas for how you could connect these, but I chose to keep this modular because it's so much easier to store, and I'm going to repurpose the base as a matzah plate when it's not Seder time. So our Resin Seder plate is complete, and I am not going to lie, I am so excited to use this. It is one of my favorite things I've ever made, and it really makes me feel like I've contributed something meaningful to the Seder table. I know I make all the food, I do all the things, but still, this just fills me with such pride for my Seder table. Now you can lay out your bowls however you'd like. You can do it in a circular formation, or you can do it with 1 in the center and 5 around it. Again, in my blog post, I share ideas for adding the words if you'd like to. I like to keep it plain and clean and modern. And I share different ways that you can sort of elevate it a little bit more, but I personally just love it as it is. Enjoy, definitely. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions regarding how to craft this, how to make it come out nice. And make sure you subscribe. Hit the like button if you enjoyed it. And Chag Sameach.